Hello and welcome back to the Holistically Awakened podcast. I'm your host, Laurence, a holistic health practitioner and life coach for women. And today I'm talking all about stress. I know we've talked about it before on the podcast, but I am bringing a series of different topics around stress and the effects on women and how to shift this and how to really help support your body heal. Because as I'm going to talk about today, stress is something that we all know of. We all are affected by it, but I don't think we realize to what extent and how it's affecting us and the different stressors that are actually affecting our body. So I'm going to dive right into this topic because I'm excited. I'm excited to talk about this because it's really important for us to understand this. And specifically for women, we have been programmed, conditioned, even taught and educated to really, focus on the achieving and the doing and shift towards our masculine energy. And even when it comes to health, we've been taught to do all of these sort of like more masculine dominant activities and trends, which I'm going to talk about. And it can be really confusing and frustrating because we're not feeling better, we're not looking the way you want to look, or we're not getting the results. And this is why it really comes down to stress. And there's so many things that we think might actually be helping us, but they're actually creating more stress. So the number one factor I see in women who come work with me that's causing issues with their hormones, their mental health. I mean, stress affects everything in their life. Is stress. I'm just gonna put it out there. This is the number one factor. And it's often overlooked. It's often overridden for other strategies like eating less, finding the perfect diet, supplementing with a billion pills or superfoods, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Oftentimes we look at what else can I do? And it's this like forcing, trying, pushing energy. And we don't actually look at like, how does my body feel? And what is actually causing me to feel stress? This is where it really starts. I can't tell you the amount of times where I've heard from women that they don't think stress is an issue in their life. Like, oh, I'm not stressed. And a lot of the time it's like the high achievers and type A's. And I totally get it because I've been there many, many times. And it's often uncomfortable to look at this and be honest with yourself because it means things will have to change and it can be really uncomfortable. And I'm going to talk about why. So, oftentimes I hear women say, like, oh, no, I don't think stress management is the thing I really need to look at. Like, no, I think I need to look into, like, again, things like supplement diets, another strategy, whatever, whatever, whatever. Because actually, that stuff is easier in a sense than to look at all of the stuff we're going to talk about today. And especially the stuff that is preventing you from slowing down, that is preventing you from taking a break or whatever, because we've been conditioned to achieve, to go, to do more. Slowing down, stopping is actually can be quite scary, especially for our nervous system and our subconscious mind that has learned that it hasn't been safe to do that. And so this is where, the trauma piece comes in, where really need to heal that so that we can come back into balance and homeostasis and back into the natural state of being that we are designed to live in, that is thriving. So going back to what I mentioned about women thinking that they don't think stress is an issue in their life, but oftentimes I hear or I see or I notice that they are skipping sleep, they're staying up late watching Netflix, or they're working late, or they're on social media. And oftentimes it's like we stay up late because we've had a whole day at work and we're a little depleted. And instead of going to sleep, we actually want a bit of time to just like decompress and numb out and whatever. And so we turn to social media and Netflix, whatever, because that's the only downtime that we have during our entire day. This is often what I see. And this is an issue. This is definitely something that comes up when I talk to women about like their bedtime routine, which is sometimes something that they fall in and out of, or they fall off the wagon. And we realize that they actually didn't have any downtime during their day. And they don't just want to go to sleep. They want to like have some of that downtime now. So it makes sense as to why they keep putting off their bedtime routine, or they don't really have a good sleep schedule because they need that downtime. And so this is a big indicator that there's too much stress because we do need that time for ourselves, but oftentimes we don't have it until like the last minute. Another sign is relying on sugar or coffee to get through energy funks. I just need to push through this. This is huge, has a huge impact on blood sugar imbalances, which is a huge stressor on the body. Huge. You cannot have balanced hormones and decrease your stress if your blood sugar is all over the place. That's just the reality. Another sign is skipping meals and succumbing to late night cravings. So again, this can happen because we're so busy, or oftentimes we're programmed into thinking like, well, if I eat less, then I will, lose weight and all of these sorts of things. But that actually backfires on us, and it regulates our metabolism and it increases stress. So we have the cortisol going up, we have the insulin that's going to be out of balance, the blood sugar that's out of balance, and all of these hormonal implications that actually result in it's going to be harder to lose weight. Not to mention all of the other health effects that this has on the body. But this is why I'm going to talk about this more later. But we really need to make sure that we are eating enough. So having the proper nutrition and being nourished is really, really important. And there is a sort of like re-education and unlearning around this, because as women, we have specific biological needs that are very different from men. And we have been learning a lot of this restrictive sort of way of eating. And it's really messing up our hormones. So the next one is in relation to this, which is forcing yourself to exercise even when you're exhausted. So this comes from the same approach of the restriction and the trying and the pushing. And this is really depleting to especially our female endocrine system. And this really depletes us. This is going to increase cortisol and dysregulate the sex hormones, and it's a total disaster. And so I think that this is also a deconditioning where we are relearning how to listen to our bodies and rest and allow that to be okay. For me, even having 1 or 2 rest days a week has been like a massive shift for me and a deconditioning in itself, because there was always this sort of fear-based motivation of I need to work out every day for my health, but then also fitness and all of these things, and to be able to eat what I want. And it's just this whole unlearning process that we need to do, because it's really hurting our hormones and obviously impacting our stress levels, which impacts our mental health, but everything. And I'm going to talk about how it really does impact us. What else? Depending on wine to wind down and to regulate yourself. Like, I think this is also something that we say a lot in our society. Like, oh, do you need a glass of wine, or here's a drink when you go through something. And obviously, like, it's not about saying like you can never drink, but there is this relationship with it where it's like we rely on it to numb out and to calm down and to process our emotions, where that is really not regulating ourselves. Actually, it's adding more stress. Then what I also see is overdoing the HIIT, the cardio, the CrossFit. So again, this relates to the exercising even when you're exhausted. But when we're continuously doing the high intensity workouts and the cardio, and we're not allowing space for rest and lower intensity movement, we are stepping on the gas and we're not able to replenish, especially when it comes to if you're of reproductive age. Doing this throughout the month is actually really detrimental, because when we hit the luteal phase and the menstrual phase, so after ovulation, this is where we're more sensitive to cortisol, and obviously our sex hormones are changing. And this actually can increase PMS and period issues and all sorts of things, and obviously result in imbalanced hormones. Next one is doing it all and rejecting any kind of support while drowning in responsibilities. And I think, society today, we're taking on so much more. And though we do have more opportunities, we are also under so much more stress, because it's not just about taking care of the home and maybe if you have kids, and, your social life and your relationship and all of these things, but it's also our jobs. And we're adding on to all of these things that are stressors if we're not getting the kind of support. And so what's happening is we're not actually getting the kind of support that we need, and we're doing way more than, any of our ancestors did. And so obviously this is going to result in burnout. And this is where it can impact obviously our physical health, our mental health, but also our relationships and all of the things. Then this can also show up as mothering your partner, feeling like you need to control everything because you don't trust anyone else to do it. And so this again is when we're in our masculine and we're trying to control the situation or other people because we are lacking that trust. And being uncomfortable at the thought of doing nothing. So we cram our schedules to the brim. I can't tell you how many times like meditation freaks people out because we we're scared. We're scared of being alone with ourselves. And this is where inside of my programs, a big part of it is really establishing that safety again so that we can feel safe to within ourselves and not having the need to always be doing something. And this obviously also takes deconditioning, deprogramming, and all of the things, but it's a big sign that we are under chronic stress and our cortisol is way too high and we're dysregulated. So, the costly effects of high cortisol when it comes to women's health can be far reaching. This can increase fat storage, especially around the abdomen. You feel like you're doing all the things, but you're just not, it's not budging. This is definitely related to cortisol. Increased risk of anxiety and depression, mood swings, fatigue, grogginess, feeling like you're wired at night, but you're tired in the morning and you have energy crashes, lowered immune function, getting sick a lot, blood sugar imbalances, increased inflammation. So that can show up in so many ways in the body, fertility issues, missing periods, PMS, any sort of period troubles. You got dysbiosis, digestion troubles, skin issues like acne. The list goes on because it really affects every part of the body because we are in the sympathetic state, the fight or flight. The body doesn't care about healing, it doesn't care about reproduction, doesn't care about digestion. It cares about fleeing, fighting, or it's caring about survival. It's trying to help you survive, even though there might not be like an imminent threat to your life right now. That is what happens when we're under chronic stress. The body still thinks there is, there's a threat, you're not safe. Even if it's something like all of the things that we're talking about, I talked about before, or stressors that are in the mind that we're projecting for the future and things like that. So the body does not feel safe. So it does not care about healing, getting better, about, fertility, about being strong and having mental clarity and all of these things. The priority is going to go towards fight or flight. And it's not just our bodies, though. When we're under high stress and cortisol levels are spiked over longer periods of time, our health degrades, but they also impact every relationship we have, whether that's with our partners, our boss, our colleagues, our friends, our family, with money, with our business, etc. When a woman experiences chronic stress, her serotonin levels plummet, her sex hormones become dysregulated, all of the hormones become dysregulated. This also makes her more irritable, anxious, even depressed. And in this state, you're not nourished, you're depleted, your cup is empty, so you can't give from that place. So automatically from this place, we lean into the masculine energy because it doesn't feel safe to lean back, to receive, to surrender, to allow, to trust. And that is the feminine. So we have this imbalance of the masculine feminine energy, but also which also impacts our health, but also our energetic frequency, how we are able to receive our relationships, the polarity in our relationships, etc. And so, what this can look like is this can show up like a permanent sense of urgency. Like it's never enough. You're always falling behind. You always have more to do, and you're always trying to prove yourself. This can also look like battling anxiety or slipping into these dark, heavy feelings, inability to access pleasure and intuition. Like that is just not even accessible. Overwhelmed to the point of shutdown. And this obviously can cause a lot of issues in our relationships, our mental health. a constant need to control, and this can show up as like mothering your partner. So this is where intimacy and attraction just go out the window, and we can have these conflicts, and the polarity is gone, and all of those things. Constantly living in the mind and disconnected from the body. So again, always thinking about things and analyzing everything, but not actually able to be in the body and being in the present moment. And this can even look like repelling those around you, like pushing people away. And it's this energy again of neediness, which is also repelling, and even towards like things like money, because we are in that needy, controlling energy, and this is not magnetic. So, what can we do about this? Because I obviously want to give you some solutions here and what you can do to reduce your cortisol levels today. And then we can talk about what further support looks like. So, you have to regulate your nervous system that thinks that it's always in survival mode. We need to get out of survival mode that is imminent. Because if we are in chronic stress and our body constantly thinks there is a threat, we can't get into healing mode. You have to rewire your neural pathways that are holding on to fear and scarcity. So oftentimes there are these beliefs and projections and all of these things that are projecting scarcity and fear into our lives and into the future, and belief systems that are not serving us. And so this is where we have to rewire those pathways so that we can start to really see that we are safe and that we are capable and all of those things. You have to support your female physiology. So we talked a lot about what that looks like in terms of when that is not being done. And this really takes, again, the deconditioning and the learning of the masculine approaches that we often grew up learning, and really understanding how we support our female body that has fluctuations and, an infradian rhythm. That means that you are cycling throughout the month, and your hormones are going to change on a day-to-day basis, on a weekly basis, and all these things. And we need to respect that and honor that. And taking care of that blood sugar, like I mentioned, and nourishing your body. Your body has to feel safe most of the time, not just when you meditate or you take a bath 15 minutes a day while the rest of your day is chaos, dysregulation, and overwhelm. Like maybe you have a bedtime routine, maybe you have a morning routine, but the rest of your day it's frantic, it's all over the place, it's dysregulated, it's all of these thoughts that are worst case scenario and beating yourself up, and it's just chaos. If that's what most of your day looks like, then your body is going to be in survival mode most of the time. And so we need to shift that. And so some things that I'm going to share are lifestyle shifts that I've had to do to regulate my cortisol levels. What I also recommend many of my clients do when they're struggling with anxiety, overwhelm, burnout, hormonal imbalances. So these are some things that you can look at shifting today that can really make a big difference. Because I think a lot of the time we look at, again, all of these like superfood supplements and all of these biohacking tools, and all that's great, but it doesn't matter if you don't have the foundations. That is just a waste of money, in my opinion, if the foundations are not there. So the first one is eating breakfast within 90 minutes of waking with a protein source. So again, we're not skipping, we're balancing out that cortisol by regulating that blood sugar. And that is going to be done, especially when we have protein in the morning. Because oftentimes we have the sugary cereal and the coffee that's just going to spike your blood sugar and your cortisol, and you're on the roller coaster ride. We want to get off the roller coaster ride. We want to make it more regulated. And a lot of women will tell me, well, I'm just not used to eating breakfast, or I'm not hungry. This is often a sign of high cortisol levels. So again, in the fight or flight response, and you are under chronic stress. And it's about then easing into it, because it's not about you need to have a huge brunch. You can just have like maybe a little snack that again has some protein in it, so that you can start to get your body on board with having some food in the morning and blunt that cortisol response. The next one is leaving electronics out of your bed. So reducing blue light exposure at night. So that means TV, computer, phone, because this will get your cortisol going at night instead of melatonin. So then we already have an imbalance of hormones that is going on. and we're going to have increased cortisol. So this means no waking up and falling asleep to social media and messages. Try to leave your phone out of the bedroom, especially out of the bed, and activate that red or yellow light. If you Google red light iPhone, you'll see the instructions how to do that. But most phones, I believe, do have the option to switch to red or yellow light so that you don't have the blue light. So even if you do have to look at your phone, you're not having that blue light right in your face, and really putting down the lighting so that it's really dim. Next one is swapping high intensity exercises for low intensity movement. So I talked about this. This can look like so many different things: yoga, Pilates, whatever it is. Walking is so beneficial. It's shown to reduce the fear response in the brain. And oftentimes we can think like, oh, it's just a waste of time. It's if it's not like a sweaty, grueling workout, but this is actually the opposite. We really want to regulate that cortisol, and walking is one of the best ways to do that, especially during your luteal and menstrual phase, where we want to have low intensity movement. None of the HIIT, none of the CrossFit, none of the heavy weights or the cardio. We want to tone it down because that's the phase where we need to decrease cortisol even more. Next one is eating 3 balanced meals. So not trying to avoid snacking throughout the day and skipping meals. So again, if you're going to start your day with a breakfast, that's a great way to get into that habit. And having the healthy fats and complex carbs at each meal with the protein so that you have that stabilization of blood sugar and cortisol, and you're not constantly on this roller coaster throughout the day that is just going to bite you in the butt. Another one is caffeine after breakfast. So instead of having coffee first thing, if you do drink coffee, definitely after food, because otherwise we're just going to shoot the cortisol and we're not going to have that leveling out of the blood sugar. So avoiding caffeine on an empty stomach. Somatic body-based exercises that signal safety to the body. So there's so many exercises that this pertains to, but even things like if you look up havening, this is a really simple exercise that can help you to do that. And it's simple, it's free, and you can do it anytime. I do have a whole sort of module or two on this inside of the Intuitive Woman course, where there's a whole bunch of exercises um, that you can do, and that can be really simple and easy and quick. But definitely regulating yourself every single day, signaling safety to your body. So touch is really, really huge and can be really, really impactful, so that you can get into your body and signal that it's safe, you're okay, you're here. And when you do these exercises, it's signaling to the body like that there is no threat, because you wouldn't be able to do these exercises if you were like in a dangerous situation, right? So those have been really huge for me. I've been doing those, trying to do them throughout my day, especially if I feel dysregulated. But then before bed, I will do about 15 minutes. And it's something that I encourage my clients as well to do, because this is where we start to rewire those neural pathways, regulate the nervous system, and reestablish that safety. And then another point is rewiring the brain using modalities like EFT, NLP, hypnosis, so that we can get into the subconscious mind. We work with the conscious and the subconscious mind and rewire those neural pathways. And so when we work with the subconscious mind, it's the quickest way to really get to the root causes of many of these issues that we have. And, the fear response and the scarcity thinking and all of these things and the anxiety, this is where we really get to like where that is rooted internally. And we can start to shift the meaning that we have in our minds and the projections and the energy that's held in our body, where it might not be feeling safe or unworthy or whatever it is. And so I love to use these modalities in my coaching. A lot of them are also included in my online course, The Intuitive Woman. I have videos on EFT on my YouTube, so you can check those out. And obviously, this can go pretty deep, but they are actually really amazing and often simple tools that can shift so much. As I mentioned, when we work on the subconscious level, that's where we are getting to like the root of the root and not just looking at like surface level experience. So, this is what brings me to the last point, which is healing the root causes. So, this is going to be on a physical, emotional, mental, and energetic level. And this often looks like self worth issues, trauma, nervous system that's chronically dysregulated, blood sugar imbalances, nutrient deficiencies, inflammation in the body, masculine and feminine imbalances. All of these are really important factors that we need to look at when it comes to healing the root causes of any condition and symptoms, and specifically when it comes to chronic stress. And that's why I have created a process where we look at the physical, emotional, mental, and energetic pieces of wellness. And we don't just look at like one thing because they all need to be in place. And so for me, I love to create a foundation of physical wellness. So this is why I start with a strategy plan inside of my signature program. While we go through the program and we do the deeper healing work around the somatic body, the nervous system regulation, and rewiring the brain so that we can establish safety within, we can shift the body out of fight or flight, survival mode, and we create sustainable change because we're changing on a cellular level, on an identity level, on a subconscious level. And that's why this work is so powerful and the results are so wide and broad and really life-changing because we change on an inner level. We're not just looking at what are you doing, it's who are you being? What is your nervous system? What is its capacity? What is your subconscious mind holding on to? What is it projecting? What is it believing? All of these things. And so that's a process I take my clients through inside of my signature program. So with this episode today, I highly recommend listening back if you want to, take note of the shifts that you can take, because I included a lot of tips and places where you can start, and that will make like a big difference for you. And if you're wanting to go further with this is something, as I mentioned, that I do and I guide my clients through inside of my program, which is a holistic healing and transformation journey from the inside out. We combine holistic nutrition, the brain rewiring, the nervous system regulation, so you can create an intuitive relationship with your body, show up as the authentic, confident version of yourself, and create a life that prioritizes what is most important to you, so that you can meet the version of you who feels safe to be unapologetic about who she is and her needs. She's not hiding behind, a mask or people pleasing or all of these things, who lives from a full cup, who's not operating from, this depletion, who is fueled by self-nurturing practices, who is prioritizing her health and well-being, and who can fully trust herself and her intuition. So we're reconnecting to that feminine energy, to your intuition, and to your core self. So if this is something that you are resonating with, if this is something you'd like to explore deeper, I would love to explore this with you and have a chat. All you have to do is click the application link in the show notes, as I will be enrolling this December and January at the current 2023 rates. And spots are limited, of course, because this is a one-on-one container. Once I receive your application, I'll reach out to schedule an alignment call to just ensure that working together is the best fit, and then we can determine how we move forward. So all of the details are in the show notes. I hope that you got something out of this episode. I'd love to hear your takeaways. Don't forget to share with me on Instagram. You do get a chance to win a one-on-one session with me. All the details are in the show notes as well. And I'll talk to you next time on the podcast.